I was looking at my dog this morning, just, a standard sleepy mutt snoring on the rug, and I had this thought. We spend so much time humanizing them.
Oh, there's
We
little.
put them in raincoats, we give them middle names, we talk to them like they're toddlers, but looking at the stack of research we have for today, I'm realizing that's completely the wrong lens.
It really is. We treat them like little people,
Hmm.
but biologically, they are these highly specialized engineering projects.
Exactly. And I don't use engineering lightly. When you dig into these breed guides, the veterinary journals, and the historical records we've pulled, you start to see that dog is just a generic label we slap on some wildly different biological machines.
That's the perfect way to frame it. We aren't talking about aesthetics here. We aren't talking about why a Dalmatian has spots. We're looking at deep functional adaptations, like actual hardware changes that were shaped by geography, isolation, and some very specific, sometimes bizarre human needs.
And the list we're covering today is essentially the X-Files of the canine world. I mean, we have dogs that yodel instead of bark, dogs that have evolved natural armor against wolves.
And dogs with extra body parts just to hang off cliffs?
Right. It really challenges the idea that all dogs are just, wolves that got friendly. These are animals that have been pulled in some extreme directions by evolution.
For sure.
So the mission for this deep dive is to strip away the cute factor. I want to understand the mechanics. We're going to look at the outliers, the weird and the wonderful, to understand how geography and necessity built the animal sleeping on your sofa.
Let's get into it.
Okay, we have to start with the most basic dog trait of all, the bark. If you ask anyone what sound a dog makes, they say, woof.
Uh-huh.
But we have a breed here, the Basenji, that apparently didn't get that memo. The sources keep referring to it as the barkless dog.
That is the headline everyone knows, but it's actually a bit of a misnomer. I think people hear barkless and just assume mute. They think it's a silent animal.
But looking at the owner forums and breed descriptions, silent seemed like the last word you'd use.
Definitely not. A Basenji is incredibly vocal, but they don't bark. They yodel. They make this sound called a baru.
A baru.
Yeah, they crow. They chortle. It sounds more like a vocal mix between a human toddler and a rooster than, a dog.
So why, is this a behavioral thing? Like, were they trained to be quiet hunters in the past and it
Yeah.
just
Oh,
stuck?
no, this isn't software. It's hardware. That's
Yeah.
the key difference. The source material outlines the anatomy of the Basenji's larynx, its voice box.
Okay.
In a golden retriever or a German shepherd, the larynx is shaped in a way that lets the vocal cords vibrate abruptly, creating that sharp percussive bark.
And the Basenji is built differently.
Significantly. Their larynx is shaped differently. It's often described as being fatter or having a shallower ventricle.
They're shallower ventricle, okay.
And that physical shape restricts the vocal cords. They literally cannot create the vibration necessary for a bark.
So they just can't physically do it.
They can't. It's like trying to play a drum solo on a flute. The instrument just doesn't make that noise.
So when they get excited, that energy has to go somewhere, and it just comes out as a yodel.
Exactly. But the larynx isn't the only primitive or distinct trait here. Reading through the behavior logs, this dog seems to operate more like a cat.
I saw that. They groom themselves.
Fastidiously. They clean their paws and wipe their faces just like a house cat. They're also known for being kind of aloof with strangers and incredibly independent.
And what about that vertical jump? A sproing.
Yeah, that allows them to scale fences and just check out what's happening on the other side.
It's interesting you use the word primitive,
You-
because looking at the history here, the Basenji isn't a modern invention. This isn't a labradoodle created in, 1980?
Oh, no. This is what geneticists call a basal breed. That means they sit at the very base of the dog family tree. They predate that massive explosion of dog breeds that happened in Victorian Europe.
So they're ancient.
We have art from ancient Egypt and cave paintings in Libya dating back to 6000 BC that depict dogs looking almost exactly like the modern Basenji.
So when we look at a Basenji, we're really looking at a snapshot of the ancient world.
Correct. And there is one biological fact in the research that really cements that connection to the wild.
The heat cycle.
Yes. Domestic dogs, almost all of them, go into heat twice a year. It's a trait that was likely selected for by humans to, increase the number of puppies.
Right.
But the Basenji, like the wolf and the dingo, only has one heat cycle per year.
That's a huge distinction. It suggests that their reproductive system never fully made the jump to domestication.
It's a metabolic energy saver that makes sense in the wild, but was bred out of most other dogs.
Huh.
It's a lingering footprint of their wild ancestors.
Speaking of footprints and wild ancestors, that segues perfectly to the next file in our stack, the New Guinea Singing Dog.
This one is a personal favorite of mine.
It feels like the Basenji's wilder, more mysterious cousin. The sources link them closely to the dingo, but they're native to the dense rainforests of New Guinea. And again, the name gives away the headline feature.
The singing dog. And if you think the Basenji is unique, the singing dog is on another level. Their howl is described as a bird-like trill, or a yodel, that creates this sort of sonic shifting effect.
The description of the coarse howl is what caught my attention. It's not just a bunch of dogs howling at the moon randomly.
No, it's coordinated. It's almost musical. One dog starts and the others join in, but they adjust their pitch specifically to harmonize with the group.
That's incredible.
It implies a level of social awareness and coordination that is really, really sophisticated.
But aside from the sound, I want to talk about how they move. I mean, New Guinea isn't a flat backyard. It's a vertical, dense rainforest. How does a dog even function in that environment?
By becoming a gymnast, the anatomical reports on the singing dog show extreme flexibility in the spine and limbs. They can spread their legs out to a 90-degree angle.
And the sources say they climb trees.
They do. They can rotate their paws and grip the bark. If the tree has enough texture, they can climb right up into the lower canopy. It's an adaptation for navigating a forest floor that's covered in roots, vines, and steep inclines.
There was one other detail in the physical description that sounded almost alien. The green eyes.
Ah, yes. That's about the tapetum lucidum.
That's the reflective layer behind the retina, right? The thing that makes their eyes glow in photos.
Exactly. In most dogs, that reflection is red or silver. In the New Guinea Singing Dog, it glows bright green.
Why green? Is that just a quirk or is there a function to it?
It's likely an adaptation for low-light vision. The structure is optimized to capture whatever tiny amount of light penetrates that dense rainforest canopy at night. Their pupils also dilate much wider than a standard dog's.
They're built for a world of shadows.
Totally. And there's a behavioral quirk listed here too, the head toss.
Right, I saw that.
This is a communicative gesture unique to them. They sweep their head to the side and rotate the nose 90 degrees. It's used to prompt attention or signal frustration.
It's like a secret language within the breed.
It is. When you combine the climbing, the singing, and the green eyes, you realize this animal's operating on a completely different operating system than, say, a golden retriever.
Okay, so we've got yodels and tree climbers. Now I want to look at a dog that seems to defy the laws of skeletal structure. The Norwegian Lundehund.
Ah, the Puffin dog.
Looking at the photos, it looks like a cute, small Spitz dog. But then you look at the x-rays and it's, well, freakish feels rude, but it's kind of accurate.
It's certainly the most specialized anatomy we have in the stack. And to understand why, you have to understand the job. In Norway, historically, puffins were a crucial food source. But puffins nest in these caves on steep, jagged cliffs rising right out of the ocean.
So if you're a human, you can't get there easily.
Exactly. It's incredibly dangerous. So they needed a dog that could go where humans couldn't.
And that required what? Re-engineering the foot?
Polydactyly. That's the scientific term for extra digits. The Lundehund has 6 fully formed, muscled toes on each foot.
I really want to clarify this because a lot of dogs have dew claws, that little useless claw on the side of the leg. This isn't that.
No, not at all. These are functional toes. They have bone structure. They have muscle. They use them to grip the rock face like a mountaineer uses crampons. They provide traction on wet, slippery stone hundreds of feet above the freezing ocean.
6 toes is wild enough, but the flexibility described here sounds actually painful. The report says they can bend their head backward until it touches their spine.
It's often described as Exorcist-style flexibility. They can tilt their head all the way back, touching the top of the skull to the spine.
Why on earth would they need to do that?
Think about the puffin burrow. It's a narrow, dead-end tunnel. If the dog crawls in headfirst to grab a bird, it can't back out easily. This extreme flexibility allows them to essentially fold themselves in half to turn around in a tiny space.
And the legs too, right? They splay out.
Yes, the forelegs can turn out at a 90-degree angle, just like human arms. This lets them flatten their chest against the rock face to shimmy into crevices or break their slide down a cliff.
It is an amazing biological machine, but the history of this breed is terrifyingly fragile. Reading the timeline here, they almost vanished completely.
They did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that puffin hunting stopped. It was disease. Distemper is a killer for dogs. Between outbreaks in World War II and another in 1963, the population just collapsed.
How bad did it get?
At one point in 1963, there were only 6 Lundehunds left in the entire world,
6? That's not a population, that's a dinner party.
and 5 of them were from the same mother.
Oh no. That is a genetic bottleneck that usually spells doom for a species.
It's massive, and it has consequences.
Yeah.
The sources discuss Lundehund syndrome, which is this complex digestive disorder prevalent in the breed. It's the price they paid for surviving that near-extinction event.
So every Lundehund alive today is a descendant of those 6 dogs.
Every single one. It's a testament to the dedication of the breeders who brought them back, but it also shows how fragile these specialized breeds can be.
From the freezing cliffs of Norway, let's go to the heat of Mexico. The Xoloitzcuintli.
A name that demands respect.
I practiced it all morning. But the name breaks down into something pretty metal, doesn't it?
It does. It combines Xolotl, the Aztec god of lightning and death, with Xoloitzcuintli, which means dog. So you get dog of the god of death.
That suggests they weren't just playing fetch.
Definitely not. These dogs had a job that went beyond the physical world. They were psychopomp's guides for the soul. The Aztecs believed that after you died, you had to travel through Mictlan, the underworld, which was full of trials.
And you needed a guide.
You needed a guide, and the Ugla was the guide. But there was a catch. If you treated dogs poorly in life, the Ugzola would refuse to help you, and your soul would be stuck wandering forever.
That's a pretty good incentive to be nice to your dog. But they had a practical use in the living world too, right? Related to them being hairless. The notes describe them as living hot water bottles.
That's where the biology meets the utility. Because they lack hair, their skin radiates heat directly. There's no fur insulation blocking it, so to the touch, they feel incredibly hot.
So people use them for medical purposes.
Exactly. If you had rheumatism, arthritis, stomach cramps, you would have a Xolo sleep next to you or on the affected area. The radiant heat would soothe the pain. It wasn't magic, it was just thermodynamics.
But here is a fact from the breed standard that surprised me. We call them the Mexican hairless, but the sources say they aren't all hairless.
This is a huge misconception. The hairless trait is a genetic mutation, but it interacts in a complex way. In almost every litter of Xolos, you will get puppies that are born with a full coat of fur.
Really? How many?
About 1 in 5. It's a recessive interaction. Historically, the coated ones were often ignored or even culled because they didn't have the magic look.
Right.
But genetically, they are the same dog.
It's fascinating how this breed was reclaimed. They were almost lost, similarly to the Lundehund, but then you have these icons of Mexican art stepping in.
Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera.
Right. They started breeding them at the Casa Azul.
For them, it was a political statement. Keeping Xolos was a way to reject European colonial standards, like poodles or spaniels, and reconnect with pre-colonial Mexican heritage. The dog became a symbol of national identity.
It's rare that a dog breed becomes a political symbol. Now, speaking of hair, or the lack of it, let's talk about coats. We have 2 breeds here, the Puli and the Bergamasco, that look like they are wearing heavy carpet.
This is the coat confusion section. To the untrained eye, these dogs look identical. Big, shaggy, matted dogs. But the mechanics are totally different.
Let's start with the Puli. These are the ones with the cords.
Right. The Puli's coat forms tight, twisted spirals. It looks like dreadlocks.
Does it grow that way naturally?
Sort of. It has
Yeah.
a woolly undercoat and a coarse outer coat that naturally catch on each other. But, and this is a big distinction, if you just let it alone, it becomes a giant, painful mat.
Oh, wow.
The cords have to be manually separated by hand as the puppy grows.
So it's a managed hairstyle.
Very much so. But despite looking like a heavy rug, the Puli is an athlete. The hoarding style described in the notes is really distinct.
It says they bounce.
They do. They don't stalk sheep quietly. They jump on the backs of the sheep, run over the flock, and bark at a high pitch.
Why bounce?
Visibility. The Puli is a small to medium dog. If it stayed on the ground, it might get lost in the tall grass or trampled. By staying vertical and acrobatic, it controls the chaos.
Now, contrast that with the Bergamasco sheepdog. The coat here isn't cords, it's flocks.
Correct. Flocks are flat, wide layers of felted hair. They look more like plates of armor or woven fabric shingles.
And the composition is different too. The notes mention a 3-hair theory.
Most dogs have 2 types of hair. The Bergamasco has 3. An oily undercoat, a rough goat hair, and a woolly outer coat. These 3 textures weave together to form these dense, flat mats.
And what's the point? Why carry all that weight?
It's literally armor. These dogs guarded sheep in the Italian Alps, where wolves were a real threat. If a wolf tries to bite a Bergamasco, it just gets a mouthful of felt. The teeth can't penetrate to the skin.
It's like wearing a Kevlar vest made of wool.
Exactly. And it also protects against the freezing cold. But because of that heavy armor, their movement is different. The Puli dances, the Bergamasco marches. They have a low center of gravity and a slow, resistant gait. They're designed to march uphill all day alongside the sheep without burning energy. They are the tanks of the herding world.
We also have the Chinese crested in this section. We talked about hairlessness with the Galolo, but the crested seems to have a different origin story.
Very different. The Chinese crested also comes in two varieties, hairless and powder puff. But they weren't guiding souls. The prevailing theory is that they were developed by Chinese traders to hunt vermin on ships.
So the ship's cat, but a dog.
Right. And if you're on a ship, a hairless dog is actually great. No fleas, no shedding in the cargo, and they stay warm by snuggling with the sailors.
Okay, we've covered a lot of heavy biology and history. I want to shift gears to our rapid-fire round. I've pulled some specific facts from the sources that either bust myths or just made me stop and say, wait, what? I want your take on them.
Let's do it.
First up, speed. The classic debate. Greyhound versus cheetah. We know the cheetah is faster in a sprint.
70 miles per hour, no contest. But the cheetah overheats and burns out in seconds. It's a drag racer.
And the greyhound.
The greyhound runs at about 35 to 45 miles per hour. But here is the key. It can sustain that speed for 7 miles or more.
7 miles.
Its cardiovascular system is insanely efficient. So if the race is a marathon or even just a long lap, the dog beats the cat every single time.
Next, the bloodhound's nose. We know they are good trackers, but the legal standing is what caught my eye.
It's fascinating. The bloodhound's nose is so accurate that its tracking results are admissible as evidence in a court of law.
That is wild to think about. A dog's behavior counts as legal testimony.
One source called the breed a nose with a dog attached. They have something like 300 million scent receptors. For comparison, humans have about 5 million. We are practically nose blind compared to them.
Next one. Poodle haircuts. We see the pom-poms on the ankles and the big poof on the chest, and we think, fancy show dog. But the sources say this was actually engineering.
Purely functional engineering. Poodles were originally water retrievers, duck hunters, in cold European lakes. A full coat of wet hair is heavy and drags the dog down.
So they shaved them.
They shaved the hindquarters to help them swim, but they left the pom-poms around the joints, the ankles and hips, and the chest to protect the vital organs from the freezing cold water.
It wasn't fashion. It was thermal protection.
Exactly, for a working athlete.
I love that. Form follows function. Here's a historical one. Titanic survivors.
Yes. There were 12 dogs on the Titanic. 3 survived.
2 Pomeranians and 1 Pekingese.
Size was the deciding factor. They were small enough to be smuggled onto lifeboats or wrapped in blankets without the crew objecting or even noticing. The larger dogs, like the Great Danes on board, didn't stand a chance.
That's a sobering thought. Next, tongues. We usually think of dog tongues as pink, but not always.
The Chow Chow and the Shar Pei are the exceptions. They have blue, black, or purple tongues. But interestingly, they aren't born that way. Chow puppies are born with pink tongues.
Really?
Yes, the pigment fills in and darkens by the time they're about 6 months old. It's a very specific genetic marker for that ancient Spitz lineage.
Speaking of body function, sweat.
The biggest myth in the book. Dogs sweat through their tongues. They don't. Panting is evaporative cooling from the moist lining of the lungs and mouth. They actually have sweat glands, but they're in their paw pads.
That explains the wet footprints at the vet.
Exactly. That's nervous sweat.
And finally, famous dogs. We have Rin Tin Tin.
The original Hollywood superstar. The legend, and it's pretty well supported, is that he actually received the most votes for Best Actor at the very first Academy Awards in 1929.
But he didn't win.
The Academy wanted to be taken seriously as a new organization, and they thought giving the first Oscar to a German Shepherd would make them look like a joke. So they changed the rules and gave it to a human.
Robbed. Justice for Rin Tin Tin. And we can't forget Barry.
The St. Bernard. He worked in the Swiss Alps in the early 1800s. The records credit him with saving 40 lives in the snow.
40 lives. That is a career.
He's a national hero in Switzerland for a reason.
So we've looked at barkless dogs, six-toed cliff climbers, Aztec spirit guides, and living mops. When you step back and look at the synthesis of all this information, what is the big takeaway for you?
For me, it's that dog isn't a singular thing. It's a map of human history. None of these traits are random. The Lundehund has 6 toes because the cliffs of Norway demanded it. The Bergamasco has felted armor because the wolves in the Alps demanded it?
The Yates-Low became a healer because the culture believed in it.
Precisely. They are biological snapshots of the challenges humans faced. We needed to hunt puffins, we needed to herd sheep in the snow, we needed comfort in the plastic enough, genetically speaking, to adapt, to fill every single one of those niches.
It really changes how you look at them. They aren't just pets, they are specialized tools and companions shaped by thousands of years of coevolution.
And here's a final thought to leave you with, something that connects back to where we started with the New Guinea Singing Dog. DNA studies suggest those dogs have been separated from other dogs for thousands of years.
Right, they live in fossil.
Exactly. If the singing dog is truly a relic from 6,000 years ago, then when you look at one, or even when you look at the dingo, you aren't just looking at a wild animal, you are looking at the missing link. You're seeing that specific moment in time where the wolf stepped out of the darkness toward the fire and decided to stay.
Wow.
That transition, that moment where wild became friend, is preserved in that dog's DNA.
That is something to think about the next time you look at your own dog's paws or ears. There is a lot of history packed into that fur. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.